Hello, everyone. We are getting ready to start. My name's Chris Neto, and I am the host of the Starin Town Hall for this month. This month, we are joined by BirdDog. We have Mr. Don Riegle and John Knutson joining us to talk about all things BirdDog. As you can see here, not by our slide because I did not move it. Today, we're flying without a net. So live without a net will be interesting. Don, let's start off by introducing you and seeing what BirdDog has in store for Starin.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. And may I say your studio and your setup, you look great there today. Hope everybody's having a good day. I'm by Cincinnati and it's wet and storming and hopefully we won't lose power. But thank you for inviting us. We are a new line to Starin, but we're very excited to be working with you and your dealers. And BirdDog is a very hot brand right now, and it's based on NDI, which is a very hot technology right now. So with me, I also have our manager of tech support for the US, Mr. John Knutson, who's there in the box below me, at least the way I'm seeing it. I run sales for BirdDog in the United States, and John runs tech support. We're both based in the US. So with the format, Chris, that you suggested to us, we have just a very short presentation that covers our product, where it fits into the ecosystem of NDI, and then a Q&A session where we can open it up to both technical, product, and sales-related questions. And then Absolutely. I have just a little short subject video, a little clip to play about NDI in general and what are the advantages of NDI and what's NDI all about.
Let's see if we can get that to go off. John, would you like to, say hi and introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm John Knutson, otherwise known to my Twitch followers as BirdDog John. We do some live tech support and that sort of thing on Twitch twice a week, and so I've got some exposure to clients and companies and what have you that way. But yeah, I'm basically now the global support product manager for BirdDog, which I run the support office here. I'm actually in Michigan, and I've got a couple of guys that work here with me, just recent hires in the past couple of months. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I've got a guy in Europe that does tech support for the Europe side of things. And then, of course, our engineers and our guys over in Australia at the head office. Nobody that directly works for me necessarily, but they all work for the big man over there. So we kind of handle all the support and do that sort of thing. You also have to excuse, today was the day they decided to start tearing up the street right behind me. So if you hear trucks and that sort of thing, making sounds, I apologize.
It makes it more realistic. It makes
That's right,
it
yes.
seem more live.
We are real people. Nothing is recorded. You're hearing it. Yeah, you're hearing it. Many of us are hearing this for the first time themselves as well. So yeah, but I'm John, run support, work with Don pretty closely here in the US, trying to make sure that our clients and retailers and distributors have the best experience with BirdDog that they can. So
sounds great. Sounds great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. And obviously, we have a lot of guests that are coming on. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of Q&A. I hope the video clip can play. Don, you picked an interesting day because producer Mark is kind of under the water, under the weather, not under the water.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
We should be able to figure this out between us.
Absolutely, sir. So let's start off with you giving us a little bit of background on BirdDog, where it came from, how it started, what's going on. Give us the background of the 411 details on everything.
Yeah, sure. Well, BirdDog was founded in 2016, and it was founded by our two founders, Dan Mile and Eamon Drew. And they were in business together for many years as the new tech distributor for most of APAC region based in Australia. And the idea, the genesis for BirdDog came from the fact that when NDI was introduced, there was really no way to get an NDI signal into a TriCaster. So Dan had been been in the broadcast industry for a long time, started at Avid, and he actually got out the old, cocktail napkin kind of story. It actually literally was true in this case. They wrote it down, an idea, and went to work on it and founded this company. So what's really unique about BirdDog is that with the advent of NDI as a protocol years ago, BirdDog approached Dr. Cross and worked closely with that team to be really at the very first stage implementation of NDI on a silicon chip. Okay, so yeah, and NDI has got a few flavors. All of our products are full NDI. When I say we have there's a few flavors. There's also NDI HX. So I won't get into that part of it right now, but that's a software-based implementation. And what BirdDog does is full NDI on our own custom silicon chip, an FPGA chip. So that's really been our claim to fame, and what that allows for is a higher image quality and lower latency. So that's the genesis of the company. And in that time, we have evolved to offer 3 categories of product. So we have cameras, converters, and software. And we were really first to market. And in many cases, I like to think we are, the leaders in the market still, and at least in terms of quality and customer satisfaction, and really just feature and benefit. Many of our cameras are totally unmatched in the industry. So it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's because I'm kind of fanatical about my own product, and many of our customers are too.
So being fanatical, you're also somebody who obviously is not just somebody who talks about it, but you're actually a product user of it and a believer in the product, which is refreshing. A lot of times, a lot of people just kind of just sell things and not believe in the things that they're selling. Well, so it's great to see that you're a product user and are familiar with it as well. So that's awesome. Let's start talking and go dive deeper into what your product family is, as I'm trying to open up the share screen.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
I have a document here to share. Let's go.
Oh, okay. So
I have all your product family available in one slide, if that helps.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to share my screen.
Oh,
yeah. I had also prepared one, but yeah. In fact, those are our yeah. I'd like to sort of maximize the view I'm looking at here, so I can see.
I will go ahead and pull that out. You go ahead and share your screen, sir.
Okay. Let me share my screen here, so everyone can see this.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Excellent. So, BirdDog. We have a nice little transition here, but these are some of the things that I had just covered here just a second ago. But one of the things to know is our company culture is very Australian. These guys can party hard, but are also very serious, but very friendly. And we're a company that, you can talk to the owner if necessary. So, we haven't gotten so big that we're also still not, as you said, users of our own products and members of the production community too. So that's what he says, hoodies and jeans, and then there's a good day mate on there. But those of us who have been out to the headquarters, John included, and myself out to Australia a few times, yeah, it's nice to work for a company like that. And excuse the sound effects in the background there. So we talked a little bit about NDI and what it is. Again, BirdDog designed its own chip, but really the reason that that's an advantage is for low latency and high quality. And it will do real-time encode and decode, and is not dependent on some kind of a back-end processing or transcode. Now, you had asked about the product family, Chris, but before I do that, do you mind if I indulge in kind of like a little trip down memory lane here?
100%, go for it.
Cool, man, thank you. Yeah, these are some of the things we're really proud of, because it's here's this little company from Australia that kind of upended some of the larger corporations of creating a solution that makes sense using IP video. And so some of the most important here is the first NDI encoder and decoder. These include the kinds of things that you get over NDI as a protocol, like tally and intercom and camera control. We've got the first NDI all-weather cameras, and we've got you'll see pictures of those in our product line, but you could put those on cruise ships, and we got one at a missile base, rocket launches, all-weather domed outdoor NDI PTZ cameras. We were the first to enable Dante software audio protocol. And we've got a few cool things coming, like wall plates. So our converters can fit into a wall for AV facilities for encode and decode. SDM modules that will snap onto the back of or into a monitor, right? So instead of being an internal box, John can talk a bit more about that because he knows more about it than I do. I have not seen one in action yet, but there's several different firsts here, and the end of this list wraps up with the 4K and NDI 4K cameras, which are two of our top of the range models, the P400 and the P200, excuse me, P4K and P400. I'm getting mumble mouth there, which are lead selling cameras in our line. And then lastly, the first 4-channel NDI converter. So those are a lot of things to be proud of, we think. So thanks for letting me do that. We have got a lot of neat things coming that take us beyond live production and typical traditional video production and take us more into the AV distributed video integration space, which I think is important to some of your markets, Chris, and some of your customers' markets and dealers' markets. We have a key partnership with Zoom, where in their Zoom rooms certified our camera to be one of the pieces of kit that goes into their Zoom room installations. Our P100 camera was just recently used in the NBA bubble, which was a big feather in our cap because at one point the NBA issued a directive to all of the teams to use the BirdDog camera, standardize on the BirdDog camera, and there was kind of a rush to purchase. Each team was trying to source cameras separately, and that was a bit of a fire drill, but that was interesting. And then we've got some other very high-profile users, including Fox Sports, Amazon, Ford, you can see on the slide, and the Olympics, others. So here's some pictures from the NBA bubble. Again, here's our little P100 up here, and another picture of it over here. And it's interesting to me because the NBA obviously has a choice of all the technology out there in the world, right? And we live in good times. There are a lot of good choices from a lot of different companies. And what's exciting to me is out of all those choices, they went with BirdDog and they went with the P100. And the reason why we can talk about, there's a lot of advantages in that camera.
I'd just like to remind everybody real quick, Don, that if you guys have questions for Don and for John, submit them into the Q&A section, and we will address those. So we're just going to get through this quick presentation, and then we'll get right to your Q&A questions as soon as possible. But yes, please go ahead and submit any questions, and let's try to stump them with some of your questions.
Well, that may not be too hard to do. So thanks, thanks, Chris.
Sure.
No, like every company's got one of these slides, right? So, but we're proud of these companies, and we can give you examples of what each of them have done with our products. So now let's get into the fun part. This is our product line, and let's just sort of key it around the different camera models. So we've got the P100. We've got a PTZ NDI PTZ camera, everywhere from entry level all the way up to a professional 4K. So the price range runs from $50.99 to our entry level, which is the P100, all the way up to $79.95, which is the P4K down here. Now, after the call and offline, we have a matrix that goes through each one of these and shows them side by side and shows what are the tech spec differences between all of them. But just for the purposes of right now, Chris, it makes sense probably just to talk about where these sit in terms of market and customer, if I could. So the P100 is a great camera because it allows you to have 4 simultaneous outputs, okay? It will output SDI, HDMI, it will output NDI over a network jack, and it will output USB, right? So you can use it as a webcam. The camera I'm using today for this session is a P100. Mm-hmm. So it is a very versatile little camera, full NDI, starts at, the price is $50.99. It comes in white and black. And this is great for churches. It's great for universities. It's great for training and great for the NBA bubble. It's got a zoom factor that will allow you to drop it into places and an optical zoom, I should say, not a digital zoom. Mm-hmm. So you can just drop it into different room sizes and count on it to perform really well. The big brother to that is the P200, and that is $27.95. This is really our bread and butter camera. This is probably our top selling camera from a sales perspective. It's got a 30x optical zoom. super fast focus, fast mechanics, awesome quality, Sony CMOS backlit sensor. This is a wonderful camera. And from a sales and bundling standpoint, we've come up with a promotion that's been very popular, which is you buy 3 of these and you get our free $1,500 keyboard thrown in. So 3 is sort of a magic number for churches or for auditoriums. You know, typically these are bought in numbers. 3 is a number. So keep that in mind. The P200, great bundle with the keyboard. So when we go to the A series, the A stands for all weather, whereas the P and the other one stand for production. So we've got these 2 all weather cameras. This one is $5,200. It's the A200, and then up to the A300, which is $74.95.
And just to be clear, the prices that Don is referencing, it's MSRP. So obviously, through us and through your Starin rep, we can we'll work on those on your costs. But we're giving you general MSRP pricing right now.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So there's specs on the sheet that you can read about this. For the interest of time, I won't go through all of the details of these. This is a camera that's got a windshield wiper on it and it's got wind and weatherproof ratings. This one, the A300, is really a beast. It looks like it's got 2 lenses. It doesn't. This top one here is a laser for focus. And it also has a gas-filled chamber, nitrogen-filled chamber for anti-fogging. So that's a very specialized kind of a camera, and it's sort of a one of a kind. And then to round out the camera line, we've got the 4K cameras. We have the P400 and the P4K. And again, just to put it in the context of the pricing, the P400 is $39.95 and the P4K is $79.95. But just to start with the P400, keep it in mind that you can think of that as the P200's big brother. So it's very similar to the P200, but it's, could think of it as the 4K version in that it's 10-bit NDI and 422, 420. It's also got the 4K Sony CMOS backlit sensor and Sony imaging module. It's got professional level color tools and color matrix control, black level, gamma, 512 presets. And so also this is a camera that comes in black and white and has filled a hole in the world of PTZ cameras for 4K at a price point and a camera that is well loved, well built, and one of a kind, really. And then that takes us to the top of the line model, which is our P4K, the $79.95 full 1-inch Sony sensor. And this again is a Sony XMAR R CMOS backlit sensor. It's got 14.4 million pixels, stunning images out of this camera. And this one was really designed to be dropped into studios and mixed and matched in a production with cameras that 3, 4, 5 times its cost. It's at a higher price, one that you think that we would sell fewer of than our entry-level model, but in fact, we can hardly make as many of these as we sell. So I hope that us dealers find that this is a good camera for their customers. We have a lot of. It's funny. This is a company that's got a lot of customers that become fans, and we have customers that take selfies with their BirdDog cameras and post them online. Not to poke the competition. I've worked at some of those companies in the past, but I don't see anybody taking selfies with our competitors' cameras. So this is one that's been very well loved, and we've got some great quotes on it. The lead producer at Fox Sports in Atlanta gave us a quote to use that said it was a game changer for their studio. So
Don, from my own personal, question that I'd like to ask, P100, P200 spend their time, they can go into churches, schools, educational facilities, corporate boardrooms, possibly. The A200, A300, obviously built for the outdoors. So for outdoor applications, those are your 2. And then when you get into the P400 and the P4K, those are the higher end, more in the broadcast professional world, right? That's how you would pretty much kind of generally place them in the spaces.
I think that's fair to say. Just from the resolution standpoint, that's a good way to frame it. Um, Also, then there are the digital zoom capability, excuse me, the optical zoom capabilities. That goes to the subject of what kind of room, what kind of space are you talking about? So when you talk about auditorium, you know, even a 10x optical zoom gives you a heck of a lot of flexibility, but you know, we go from 10 to 30 across this range. So that's just another thing to consider is, you know, what kind of zoom are you likely to need? But we've got an answer for all of those. One thing I would like to say, Chris, because you brought up the idea of the different kinds of venues. One of the things that's really well liked about our cameras that we see these comments a lot are that people are just able to unpack them, hook them up and set them down and they just go. You know, they just work. They work in all kinds of lighting conditions. We had some stage lighting recently that was camera was light facing, you know, a big spotlight right, you know, right into the camera, and it was able to handle and the lighting changes, you know, on a stage during a performance, low light, bright light, constantly changing lights. You know, these cameras have really performed, you know, even beyond sometimes dealers' expectations when they thought they were going to have to do a lot of setup and service.
Sounds good. Well, we're starting to get some questions come in, so I'd like John to join us as well, even though your presentation is still, you know, we're still going through it. John, can you join us
Yep.
as well on video? Let's get some of these questions out before we move into the converter side of the questions. So we had a question coming in, and I know that John kind of answered it remotely through the chat, but I want to bring it out so that everybody can hear and see. Corey Sprinkle had a question regarding, do you have to pay for the NDI key to enable NDI?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is no. On all BirdDog products, you're paying for the NDI. And so a lot of other companies, I won't name any, but will have you, that'll be a feature where you can enable it. And basically it's a firmware update and a license code. But BirdDog is NDI exclusive pretty much. That's why we do what we do. And so when you buy a BirdDog camera, the full NDI module is a part of that's the main feature of the camera. So there's no unlocking of any sort of NDI function at all. It's just a part of the purchase.
Awesome. Awesome. Jenny has asked us as well, when do you think we will see a transition from USB cameras to NDI as a standard for UC use? Basically, how many years away? We're trying to pick your brain and bring in the futurist.
So there's some crossover stuff right now that's happening. The first thing out of the gates is there is a NDI tool set from NewTek. If you go to ndi.tv/tools, there's a download for some pretty basic NDI tools that if you're in the NDI game, you probably have this tool set. It's free. You have to sign your life away with an email address so they can contact you forever. But they can send you a download link to your email. And then you can get this tool set. Inside there's a program now called Webcam Input. They just recently changed it. It used to be called Virtual Input, but now it's Webcam Source or Webcam Input. I can't remember exactly the name. Okay. But basically that takes a NDI source and converts it into what the PC would see as like a USB input. And so in this particular case, I'm actually using a P4K. I've changed my camera mid-show here, and I'm doing this. And so that's what this is. Now, you know, there's lots of variations here, but basically I'm taking the NDI source from the P4K and then bringing it into the Zoom call and using that as my Zoom source. So technically this can be done right now. Now, how far away are we from where this is a native feature inside Zoom and, you know, Hangouts and, you know, all those other companies out there that are doing this? Probably not too far. Microsoft Teams, and there's another big one that's trying. They're having some struggles with bringing it in natively, but they are trying to do it. I know Zoom is taking a different approach, but they're all trying to bring in NDI sources natively, because essentially what we're dealing with here is ones and zeros, right? So the camera is converting the video off the baseboard into network data, ones and zeros, and then bringing that across the wire and making that available to wherever, you know, whatever your subnet reaches. So same thing where these programs, Zoom and Teams and all these guys are trying to, WebEx is the other one. They're all trying to read NDI natively and then bring in those sources like automatically. So right now the stopgap is this little tool set from NewTek or NDI.TV, and that converts the NDI signal into a usable one that we can use inside Zoom right away, like today.
Right now.
But for the long term, probably not too far off. I can't speak for other companies, but I suspect in the next 12 months, many of them will natively speak NDI as a receivable source for, for their program.
Sounds great. We have a question from Dominic Capitelli. Capelletti. I'm sorry, mispronounced that.
Yeah, we know Dom.
Okay, so we need 12G SDI wall plate. Is that coming?
Take it away, Dom.
Can you answer that?
Oh yeah, thanks, John. I was gonna leave that one with you. Yeah,
wow, that's a hot potato. Thanks, Dominic, for dropping
Dom.
that on.
How's it going, Dom? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, we know Dom. We know Dom. So good to see you virtually. Hear from you, Dom. Virtually here, Dom. That is a feature that is working on the bench. We've got two different things happening simultaneously. Firstly, there is a worldwide shortage of semiconductor parts. And that's not just BirdDog, that's all manufacturers. In fact, the Honda plant near where I live have had to close down recently because they can't source the chipsets that they need. What that means to us is it's not necessarily crimping our bench build, but it's kind of causing problems as we have to move to different chipsets to enable the same exact functionality we had on a previous set of chipsets. If I've understood that explanation correctly from as I was told. So it's coming and it's working and it has worked, but we have to continually adapt to what we have available to use.
Yeah, in particular, Dom's asking about a 12G SDI model, which I don't know if we have that on the bench. I know the HDMI one is up and running just fine. The actual BNC version that you're asking for, I'd have to go to the team and see if that's something that's on the roadmap, because that the BNC connectors or the SDI connectors sticking out of the wall plate might be an issue. It's interesting that you have a use case for it, because we've kind of seen this big push in the AV industry towards HDMI, and that's all well and good, except some older installations, for example, or actually even production scenarios could really benefit from a 12G SDI 4K 60 capable wall plate unit. And so I'd have to specifically ask about the 4K SDI. Dawn and I have both seen the working model of the HDMI. The semiconductor shortage is kind of an issue. But yeah, it's that part is pretty close to being done.
So since I have both you product experts here on the line and willing to answer the tough questions, I have my own question to ask because it's something that has come up in conversation. I've had meetings about this with possible future integrators and stuff like that. At what point do you make that decision between an SDI versus NTL? Like, in your experience, where is that kind of fine line drawn where if you're considering doing an SDI product, you should consider NDI? Like, where is that decision making?
Yeah, Don, I want this one. I don't want a sales pitch for this. Here's the way
we can have both. We can have both versions.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Ask for both.
The what I think is the really valuable piece with going with the NDI option is the flexibility it gives you, not in the future, but right now. Mm-hmm. So when you turn video into ones and zeros and you don't have a hardline copper, granted, you have that the SDI latency conversation about, what's the latency, out the SDI port. That's a standard conversation with salesmen and that sort of thing across the industry. What is from glass to the SDI port. Mm-hmm. There's a conversation about how quick can we do it. With full NDI, the standard is one additional frame. So it is like we're talking about an unbelievably fast process, which is why we have to make our own chip. So when you talk about, okay, why would I invest in a network infrastructure, computer network infrastructure, and NDI cameras instead of going with the traditional SDI BNC, setup? The latency conversation doesn't really have too much of a foothold, because a lot of the stuff is done in post-production anyways and is lined up. And so one additional frame, unless we're talking about IMAG, is not an incredibly difficult feat to line up. Where I find it extremely valuable is I can have a production set up in Melbourne and I can be producing it here in Michigan, because when we turn it into ones and zeros, we no longer are restricted to the studio space in which we have the BNC cables run, but instead we can send this stuff practically around the world. And Don will probably get into some of this about BirdDog Cloud and what it is we're doing there, but we can send this stuff around the world. And so not even the immediate conversation of, I want to make a small studio and want to get this up and running. Now it can be, I can buy 2 cameras and put one in my office above my computer, but I can send one to Don in Kentucky and he can plug his in and turn on his laptop essentially. And I can connect to his camera. I can control his camera. I can get his camera feed, and it can look like we're having a conversation in the same room or in the same office. And the production scope in this pandemic era, what it's taught us is remote production is now the norm. It's not we're not going back to this realm where we're all going to be inside the same room. The idea that we all work remotely is now a real deal. And the solution is get the data. Whether or not you use BirdDog Cloud is up to you, but we can get the data to ones and zeros, and now we can pass it around the office. We can pass it around the floor, up floors. We can pass it to the next building over, across town, across the state, across the world, whatever you want to do, with minimal additional latency added just to do that. So, there are immense benefits to turning the video into ones and zeros and buying that for today's production, but knowing that tomorrow we have the versatility to use it. So there you go.
Sounds great. So we do have some more questions. I'm sorry, Don, this questions take precedence over the presentation. So I have you guys here. I need to answer these questions. The audience wants to know. So the next question coming in from Kyle Cruz. Kyle asks, do you have demo or loaner hardware? For example, PTZ cameras and a controller. What is your, and I guess this is a question for Don, what is your demo loaner hardware program? And before you answer that, just so you know, Kyle, within Starin, we have a try to buy program for integrators so that you guys can take a hold of this equipment and we'll be able to assist you with that. But Don, what is your loaner program look like?
Yeah, thank you. Well, our loaner program is the Starin try to buy program.
Sounds great.
I know I'm a former Sony guy, and we did have in those days a demo pool that was run and administered by the company and sales engineers. But no, we do it everything through the channel. We don't sell anything direct. You're not going to bump into any direct BirdDog salespeople, and we don't have a BirdDog warehouse of demo cameras that the direct salespeople pick and choose where they go and where they don't go. This is something that we turn over to our partners, and Starin's got it in good hands.
Sounds great. Next question comes in from Corey Deming, and Corey asks, Flex 4K, how about the 1x1 version? Adding support for PC resolution, i.e. 1920 by 1200. John, is that question fired off at you, or is that something?
Yeah, it sounds like it's a direct shot across the bow. No worries though. So yeah, Flex, part of the challenge with what we've done is, like, Don's got the slide up here, which is really helpful. So the original, the thing that we built our company on is the NDI Studio. And the studio basically was to be mounted on a camera and can convert that signal to ones and zeros and get it across the network. So that was the be all and end all type of thing. The piece that we began to expand, obviously, and people started, like, we got the Mini, which is HDMI, and people see HDMI ports on all sorts of things and throw the Mini on there and try to encode. And that's quickly snowballed into guys are trying to do game capture, for example, 4K game capture out of the Flex or even the 4K family, and trying to basically they would go into the Flex or go into the 4K HDMI and out the output port and into their monitor and doing like an NDI capture mode there, send it to OBS or what have you. And it logically makes sense. However, the company has been in the camera broadcast realm for most of the time that it's been around. And so to all of a sudden do basically what is a different standard is not something that we're shying away from. It's something that we're actively pursuing. But the standards that come out of cameras, like for example, none of the products that are on this screen that you see have an EDID inside them. If you don't know what an EDID is, it's basically the module telling the monitor or telling the computer what resolution it expects. All of them accept whatever resolution is sent to it as long as it's a broadcast standard. But they don't kick back and say, I'm expecting you to send me 1080p 60. There's nothing like that. So with cameras output, and they don't care what's receiving them. The receiver better be able.
And John, you just locked up. You're in. Well, John apparently just
sorry,
got
yeah,
down.
just got dumped for some reason.
Go ahead. You were as you were saying.
Okay, sorry. So we as you know, cameras all do the standard broadcast standard. However, the computers don't, and so their computers are actually expecting an EDID. So when you plug a computer into a monitor says the best I can do is 1080p 60 or 1080p 144 or whatever it is, and the GPU will pick it up usually and send it the appropriate output. There is nothing like that in these units. Now, Wallplate has an EDID, and so we can actually do it. And the chipset is very similar to the one that's in the Flex, and so we can do it. How to integrate it and get that actually up and running, that's up for us to decide. But the plan is, because Flex in and out, for that matter, have been plugged into gaming rigs and computers at an alarming rate, far more than they're being, I think, plugged into cameras. They're being used in the gaming industry. BirdDog is working on a way to try and make that happen, because they're being used as capture cards, whereas traditionally you would buy a capture card in a separate machine and capture the output that way. So there are plans. It's an active conversation. I'll put it mildly that way. And then we're pursuing how to do that correctly, whether that's we put an EDID in, whether you have to switch the unit over to a different mode, that sort of thing. So there are plans there. It's not there yet because the units were originally designed to go on top of cameras. But we hear you. We do hear that request quite often.
And it's refreshing to hear a pro AV company or manufacturer talk about at home stuff, because in the at home space right now is super active in production work, believe it or not. So for the integrators are on here that typically don't take notice of what's going on in the residential spaces, because you are definitely not in the residential world and you don't want to get into high-end home theaters. It's not home theaters anymore. Look at the broadcast side production. What was once considered side gigs by many people who were just YouTubers and did cooking and recorded a video. Now we're live streaming cooking shows and doing all sorts of captures from their home. So there may be an opportunity for integrators to start looking at these side gigs as real deal opportunities, if you can get past the fact that it's somebody at their house doing it, right? Typically the commercial world typically likes to work within an office space or office buildings, but these side gigs are now have grown immensely. And what was once something that you would go down to your local electronics store and pick up a handful of computer parts has now grown and developed into something a little bit more, or a lot more, than just a prosumer space. So please keep an eye on that. And that's a great question. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. Kyle also has another follow-up question to that. Kyle's next question is the max number of NDI sources is the max number of NDI sources you would recommend to run on a 1G switch prior to moving up to a 10 gig switch?
Okay, so what's the threshold is what he's asking. Well, the true answer there is it's actually, the bottleneck is not the NDI source. The bottleneck is going to be the processing power of your switch. And that's where things get very anecdotal, because there is no standardized NDI switch in the market. Now, I say that, however, the switching companies are paying attention because, for example, the Netgear M4250 has on the website that the AV line supports the NDI profile, which is huge, because that's Netgear going on record and saying our switch will work with the NDI protocol.
So that's
And
Netgear acknowledging that NDI exists.
correct, which is huge. I don't expect that announcement from Cisco,
Yeah.
but that's just me.
Mhm.
Just because Cisco is a corporate data-driven company, and so they set the standard. It's why they have their own networking courses, and it's not networking 101 hosted by Cisco. It's called CCNA. They're Cisco certifications, and so that is a very different thing than talking about networks that can handle it. So when we say 1 gig, I can say, well, you just divide 140 megabits by 1 gig, and
Mhm.
there's your number. That's not actually true. What's more truthful is to say, well, what is the actual threshold? How many packets can the switch process in real time? Now, don't pull up the marketing material of a switch, because it's marketing material, and they will find out what the maximum amount of packets are in any given instance. Basically, them turning up the throttle and finding out in an instant how many can it handle.
Mhm.
NDI is full on all the time. So picture like a fire hose. It's that constantly until you turn it off. And can the switch keep up with that? And that is a different statistic than, what is if we turn up the dial to 11, can it handle it for a couple of minutes? Totally different stats. So you'll figure out fairly quickly over time what the threshold ends up being, because you don't necessarily, the NDI products will do what the NDI products do, but they will output an HD signal. Full NDI is going to output 130, 140 megabits a second, and your switch is going to need to be able to process that. And if it can't, it's going to need adequate things like packet buffers. You have to turn things off like QoS and jumbo frames. We can talk about that maybe on a network integration conversation. But there are certain ways to set up the network, and then it's basically considered a high performance video network. That's what we're talking about. And can the switches process that sort of data on a regular basis? I'll leave it there, because I can talk for hours.
We do have another question. I know we still have a PowerPoint slide that's sitting here. For effort of time, we may have to skip the video, but we will go through the products at least. Corey Sprinkle has a question saying, can you speak about the network requirements and also latency? We are typically in a live IMAG environment.
Yeah. So it highly depends on networking. The standard for full NDI is 1 frame. So it encodes at 1 frame and then decodes at 1 frame. So if you're going from a P200 and you're going up to a mini that's up near a projector or that sort of thing, the encode and decode process totals 2 frames.
Mhm.
Depending on how you're transporting that information and depending on what else is going on in the network is going to reflect on your true latency numbers. And so when if we have an isolated network, for example, you have your own dedicated network, your own DHCP server, you've got your own routing, all the layer 2 switches have routing, maybe they're layer 3, like those AV switches you're talking from Netgear. Perhaps if it's just all on its own and it's tuned to kind of just do NDI, yeah, we're talking about 2 frames beyond what the actual output of the SDI is doing on the camera. When we start introducing other things, like oftentimes AV networks will have Dante in a different VLAN, or will have the switches doing other things. Even if you VLAN off the NDI network, but you have a data network operating parallel, obviously that's eating up processing and power of your actual network. And so your results will kind of vary depending on your installation. For example, we have a church. The church has it's VLANed off, but they have a Wi-Fi and a data network. They also have an employee network, and they want to add NDI and IMAG to this. So they want to capture the cameras, bring it into vMix, Wirecast, TriCast, or pick your poison. And then they want to send the NDI output of that program up to IMAG. The latency will matter. Basically, what can the program do? So OBS and vMix will introduce, and Wirecast will introduce their own latency. TriCaster has its own standards, and so you can check with NewTek on that. Yeah. But just the camera to the IMAG in a perfect scenario, we're talking 2 frames basically. It is the IMAG standard is full NDI. If you're to do NDI HX, you're talking 8 to 10 frames. It will visibly be off like almost a second or two. And so that won't be good enough for most people. So you'll need to do a full NDI flavor. And that's kind of where we hang out.
Awesome.
But it will be network heavy, probably deeper than we can get into here on this brief conversation.
Awesome. Perfect. Another question came in from Daniel Gross, and I'm just going to read the question. Budget power marketing material says 18.19W for PoE plus. Do you recommend overhead? And if so, by how much?
Absolutely. I recommend per PoE plus. So the PoE plus standard in the networking world is 30 watts. So I recommend 30 watts per port. And I also recommend 20% overhead on your switch to be able to handle that. Typically, you're not going to have a power threshold before you have a processing threshold. Switches that do 150 watts, in theory, could do 5 sources at PoE plus. However, those switches that run 150 watts probably aren't going to keep up with 5 sources. And so, you're going to go to bigger switches that will end up doing more power. So power isn't typically the conversation that is the bottleneck. Typically, it's the processing of the switch. So I say 20% more than what you need. So we're talking 3 to 4 on 150 watts. We're talking 3 to 4 sources, which is probably within the threshold limits of that switch anyways.
Sounds great. We got another question coming in from Zachary Lacroix. He's asking, I'm sorry, Zachary, if I messed up your last name, but my apologies. Can video sync be transported over NDI, or does a coax need to be run in parallel for that?
So are we referring to Genlock here, or what is the video sync? So, well, in general, in the NDI realm right now, the time codes that are produced at NDI are done internally. So there is no like NTP standard, or there is no real like Genlock enabled, if you will, to do reference. That is actually on the P400 and the P4K. I believe there is a Genlock output. However, it's not programmed yet. It is being programmed right now. So that piece is not there. We're also considering doing something like where you can synchronize to a server clock, and then that would be embedded on the actual NDI feed, and then you could line that up in post. But again, that feature is not there yet. We're considering it. I don't even know where it is on the feature request list. There are a few fish to fry before we get there, but that is the plan.
Okay, sounds great. We are at the 45-minute mark, and typically we don't go any time over. We've had a lot of great questions. Don, have we covered everything, or are we even remotely close?
Well,
I know we jumped right into the questions, and John was able to bang out a bunch of them. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, we have covered everything. There's a picture of the converters on the screen, but that's easy. That's just looking at what is the IO and what kind of customer needs do they have. So we can answer that question all day long. We've got a lot of great support materials. We have a knowledge base on our website that's very thorough. We've got a multitude of videos that have been made by all the different people on our staff that can cover a lot of the setup questions and feature function questions. We've got a public folder for dealers that have all of our graphics, our sales materials, our sales tools, feature benefit sheets, things like that. I'll share all of these links with you, Chris, and then you can figure out how you'd like to make them available to everybody. But yeah, I mean, there's many different dimensions of detail that we can get into here, but we're a very open and accessible company. I'm in Cincinnati area. I'm in Eastern time zone, but I cover all 3 time zones in the US. My email is don@bird-dog.tv. And all you need to do is check in with us, and we will work it with you to get you the answers that you need anytime.
sounds great. Well, you know what? We'll wrap this up, I guess. John, how can we find out more information about you or BirdDog?
Yeah, so all of this, our support desk is help@bird-dog.tv. That's a really simple way to kick off a ticket if you need to talk to somebody at support. And that goes to, I'd say email me directly. However, sometimes I'm
That
not,
doesn't work.
I'm doing video calls and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So if you send it to help at Bird-Dog, there are 4 guys now that sit at that desk and watch that incoming email. So you will be responded to if you send it over there. And then a lot of our stuff is on our knowledge database. So the videos, the tutorials that I've done on a technical level are available on our knowledge database. So bird-dog.tv, scroll across to the support button and then click on knowledge database. We've just set up a brand new knowledge database. We just moved our CRM and everything over. And so you can go in there, and if you have specific questions about cameras, there are knowledge database articles in there. I've done several videos about, setting up your keyboard or, getting into things. And our team over in Australia now has a legit studio. And so they are doing featurettes about, color and, settings on your camera and all that sort of good stuff. So
Yep.
there will be more forward facing things for clients to get to where you can direct them there if they have questions. There will also be more videos coming out for our distributors and our retailers about, okay, here's how you set this unit up. Here's how it should behave out of the box and that sort of thing. So over the next 6 months, I'm tasked with putting another studio together here in my office and then getting all that up and running. So bird-dog.tv, click on the support button, click on knowledge database, and that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah. So that pretty much answers. I had 3 questions pop up real quick regarding Dominic Capoletti. He was asking for where are these videos? He wants these videos, something a little bit longer than just a 2-minute video. So that you saw that coming up. You said that those are coming, the bigger, more in-depth integrator focused videos. He also shared a comment where he'd like to know more, where you guys are going to inform the dealers with product updates, whether that is, I understand that you're probably your marketing department that does that, but I'm sure that there's sign up for the emails and different type of communications that does that. We at Starin will be grabbing whatever product updates that BirdDog has as well, and we'll be informing our integrator partners. So you can look for those updates as well as we get them from BirdDog. So we will be helpful. We're going to do our best to get that forwarded over to you. Again, he wants his 12G SDI wall plate, just in case you didn't get that. So Dominic definitely is wanting to get that, John. Don,
How many thousands can you order, Dom?
let's get that plate going.
That's right.
Currently you post on Facebook. I don't know. Okay. So Don doesn't want the socials. He wants traditional product updates sent via email. Your questions and comments, Dom, have been taken to these guys. They will take it back and get this more in a way or fashion that's better for you. And yeah, he is known. That's what it says here. They all know me. All right, Dom, thank you. Appreciate it. We do have, let me go ahead and if you stop sharing, Don, I will wrap this up. But before we wrap up, we have to kind of go through our product, not the product randomizer, but the prize randomizer. Producer Mark, who is not feeling 100%, is sent me the winner, and the winner is Lee Cobb. Lee, we will be in touch to send you your $50 Amazon gift card. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching our Starin Town Hall for March with BirdDog, our guests for this month. We do have a surprise guest coming in next month. I know you guys all wait until the end to find out who it is, but next month we actually are going to bring forward a surprise manufacturer, and you have to stick around and see who comes in April. It's not an April Fool's joke, so please do not take that as me just.
Is it Lindsay Buckingham?
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, no, we're not going to be doing any April Fool's jokes. But thank you all for watching. My name's Chris Neto. I'm the market development manager here at Starin and the host of this month's Starin Town Hall. Wow, I didn't realize I was going to do a clap, but that wasn't part of it. Thank you all so much for watching, and look forward to our April Town Hall with a surprise guest. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me from BirdDog. Real quick, Don, where can we find BirdDog on the web?
It's bird-dog.tv.
There you go, bird-dog.tv. That's where you go to find out all your BirdDog product information. You can also go to starin.biz. Our website has all the products and everything listed there. More than welcome to reach out to me, Chris Neto at Starin, and we will go ahead and get any further questions answered. Thank you all for joining, and I appreciate you all being here, and look forward to next month. Have a great one.
Thank you, everybody.